You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. You know, once upon a time, there was a phrase that said, behind every great man is a great woman, and that's obviously horribly incorrect in today's world. So I like to say it a little bit differently. Behind every great person is usually one or more other great people. And today I've got a lady with me who is an expert in, number one, doing that kind of support work, but also leading, coaching, and teaching others to be that great support person for somebody that might be out there in the front as the face of an organization, man or woman. But my guest name is Monique Hellstrom. Monique, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Doug.
So we teased that a little bit, and I attributed the greatness thing because you've got an experience in your life of working for Simon Sinek's organization and ultimately directly with Simon. So let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about that experience and what your journey was with Simon as he skyrocketed his business.
Sure. So most of my career has been in the executive assistance world, in the administrative world, and had done various things up until the time that I had met Simon. And as Simon was, we were having a conversation one day, and he was sort of telling me he needed someone to organize his entire life, his world, if you will. I was like, I'm really good at organizing other people's lives. So I started working with him in late 2010 as his executive assistant. My title was Chief of Simon. And I spent the next decade of my life helping him as the right hand be the administrative logistics and operations side of his entire business. So, I started right after the first book was out, Start With Why, and I left just after Infinite Games. So we had many book launches, we had many iterations of the company, and wow, it was a wild ride to say the least.
Yeah. Well, as I it's surprising to me that I still occasionally have to introduce Simon's body of work to clients that come across my path, and maybe that's just a generational thing at this point. But in my own perspective, Simon was one of those guys that you might call an overnight success, but it took years to get there.
Years and lots of hours and lots of time. Yes.
Yeah, and I always laugh when people see this name and face that seems to have this big splash on the screen, but when you really learn this story, they've been working at it a good while trying to
Yeah.
make things happen.
Most
And
definitely.
to the point of providing that kind of support, I certainly have great admiration and appreciation for a powerful, effective administrative assistant, and I don't even like that title normally, but I'm glad they bestowed Chief of Simon on you. That was a good one. I recall in my own career, I had an opportunity. It was still back in my banking days, and I had gone through several assistants and was not quite finding the magic in it. And one lady that was on my team raised her hand and said, I'd like to try that. I've been on your team for a while doing other things, and I think I know this place, and I think we can work. And sure enough, what ended up happening, we almost had this, you know, other world connection that she could finish my sentences, and I could almost in the certain circumstances just look at her and she knew what she needed to do next. And we had done a lot of work establishing process and protocol for different things, but it was just a wonderful experience, and I hope she feels that way. I haven't ever really asked her about it, but it was
You
for
should.
me. So um, anyway, um, so talk to us about that. What do you think is the right mindset for a person that fills one of these important roles?
The right mindset. Well, it really, I guess. That will depend on what role you're taking and with whom you're taking. Being in the administrative profession, it's such a wide berth of things that we do. It's from office manager to chief of staff, and every executive assistant does something a little different. I knew many people who worked for thought leaders and speakers when I was with Simon who maybe fundamentally some of the things were the same, but we all had different executives. So you have to mold almost to who you're working for and what industry you're working in and how you can be successful and powerful. Um, Overall, I always equated this relationship to an architect and a builder. The architect is the person with the vision. They can see the building before the building has even been made. They know what color it should be and what style it should be and where the windows are going to be and the vision and the strategy and thoughtfulness and forward thinking and futuristic thought. It's so essential and it's so powerful, but you have to have someone standing next to you with hammer and nails.
Mhm.
Yeah, otherwise it's just a pretty picture that you drew. So I always said we have to come in like the builder. We get the drawings from the architect and then we take it and we make the walls and we put the doors in and we do the finishing touches and all of the things that seemingly are unnoticed and are is everything to the building of the house.
Where do you think the current state of the world is with we talked about it a little bit in the green room. We all know there's this advent of AI coming in, and everybody's, well, there are those that are panicked about what that means to the work world. There are others that are being very proactive, but that aside a little bit, just as let's call it one element of the future that's coming,
Mhm.
what do you see as the future of this relationship between business leaders and their executive assistants?
Sure.
Is that, do you see that changing over time, or has the expectation morphed in any way?
Absolutely. I would even say since I left the career as the executive assistant, ironically, it has really blossomed since then. I think it was 2 years ago, an executive assistant was listed as one of the top 10 jobs you should get in 2024. So we went from sort of being behind the scenes, quote unquote, to being something that everyone, or at least a lot of startups and small businesses and venture capitalists and some of these organizations know that they need someone in this arena to put all the puzzle pieces together. So I think even in the last 5 years, it's blossomed. I think the respect for my profession has grown immensely. As a recruiter, I'm hearing more and more and more executives coming to me saying, I want the right hand partner. I want someone to be in the meetings with me. I want someone to think of things before I am. I want them very much involved, where even 10 years ago, there were a lot of executives saying, I just want someone to do my email and calendar. So I see the shift as finally we are becoming recognized as the amazing people that we are. And I also see the need coming in on the executive side that they are understanding the power of having someone, having that partner who sees a very different perspective, again, the builder's perspective, not the architect. And hopefully that's going to continue and blossom on.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot to be said for that because, on the one hand, speaking from the leadership standpoint, and those tend to be my clients, is, there's an expressed concern for the workload, just the sheer busyness of the role and the multitude of things coming at business leaders. You just intuitively know there's got to be some place to offload some of this. And as you start sorting, if you're the leader and you've got to start sorting through the critical and important versus important, not urgent, urgent, not important, those things, those are all opportunities for delegation, and no better to delegate to than a trusted assistant to or right hand to even maybe triage further or just keep track of it, simply for the idea of knowing what is next and what has to be done. And to your original point, that architect visionary persona that might be the leader, Um, that's what they're getting paid to do. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks, but they need implementers around them to be able to make it happen.
100%. We can't all be good at everything. Thank
Right.
goodness. If we were all an inch deep and a mile wide, then, where would skill set and talent come from? Thank goodness most of my executives understood that they didn't have that skill set, nor should they try. Why are you trying to make yourself into a builder if you're the architect? Just be the best architect you possibly can. And for us as well. So I think for the executives out there, the understanding that this may not be your skill set. You are not the subject matter expert potentially in this type of work. So let those that are excel where they can.
So, what are you trying to do today in your business? Talk to us a little bit about the scope of things you're involved with.
Sure. I'm going to spend the rest of my life radically defining this relationship between an executive and an assistant. I had a very successful, very wonderful, very positive career, and I wish that for everyone. I wish everyone could have the types of partnerships that I had with former executives, helping them grow, helping them expand and build their dreams and build their vision, Simon included, obviously. And so I really want to get out there and start banging the drum. I want to help assistants know that they have power, they have skill, and how they can use it better. So I do a lot of coaching for assistants on how to help them grow as a human, gain confidence, also technical skills and growth in AI and such. So I do a lot of coaching on the administrative side, but more and more and more lately, I'm doing more coaching on the executive side. And I'm doing that to help teach executives how to have an assistant. Because this is not a course that you all have either. And I feel for you. You get a promotion or you start your own company and you start making money, and then either somebody gives you an assistant or you hire your first, and it's like somebody giving you a MacBook computer with no instruction manual to it, and you're like, this is a very specific relationship. How do I delegate? How do I give feedback? How do I do annual reviews? So I feel for the executives that they've never been given the manual. So I want to get out there. Again, this is no shame, no blame. This is a specific relationship that if I could help teach you how to do it, if I could help you gain that productivity, why not? So I coach on both sides. I do a lot of administrative recruiting as well, helping the executives find that perfect partner.
You're really onto something there on that last comment. And as you were describing it, I flashed back to my banking days when I finally got promoted up and elevated to the point where I was allocated a dedicated assistant.
There you go.
And as much as I had certainly worked with those folks throughout our organization, dealing with other executives, when I get to have one, it was a weird experience. It's like,
Weird.
and part of it, there are a number of things that fed it, and part of it was I fancied myself a servant leader, so it's kind of like I never wanted to ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself, and so that alone kind of set up this weird buffer that was counterproductive because it was like, no, that's why I'm supposed to have that person.
Right.
And I am supposed to be offloading certain things. And I'll admit it took me a minute to figure that
Yeah,
out and
absolutely.
get comfortable with, not just figure it out, but get comfortable with it and not really betray my principle of leadership, but realize that it was a value add for what we were trying to accomplish. So,
100%.
so I had to shift my own mindset about it. I wasn't really burdening this person. That was their duty.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what we love to do. This is what I was built to do. I love putting the puzzle pieces together. And so often I do hear something like that, like the executives maybe don't want to pass things down, maybe don't know how to delegate this particular project to somebody else. And you're right, it is a very strange relationship. We know your social security numbers. We know when you're fighting with your wife. We know everything about you. And so that level of vulnerability is hard. It's hard. I mean, I get it. You really have to open up yourself as an executive to the assistant and let them inside your world. So I get it. And again, this is why I want to just reiterate to the executives out there, this is no shame or blame. This is a weird relationship. It's unlike any relationship you're going to have at work. So why not get the instruction manual and figure out how to do it right?
Well, let me ask you this from the assistant's perspective, how do you discuss and coach the idea of creating that cone of confidentiality for your executives so that, a big part in what an executive would hand off has to do with that trust factor with the person. It's like, is this my leak, in my world? And again, I like the spirit of what you're saying. No shame, no blame. Let's just talk about this.
This is
Let's yeah. So how do you address that with your perspective, people that are wanting to go down that path?
in confidentiality, you
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
Well, this is the position where we're voluntarily coming in to know these types of things. And if you don't have that already built into your system, that this is not my personal world, this is somebody else's personal world, this is somebody else's bank account and somebody else's life and family holiday and you wanting to be that coveted person who helped them build that is a very different attitude than someone who comes in to get stories or gossip out of it. And unfortunately, there's people everywhere that go off the rails. But for the most part, confidentiality for us is built in. It just is something that we naturally do. It's part of the job. And frankly, if I ever came across an executive assistant or someone in the administrative profession who had a problem with consistently leaking someone's, personal information, I would tell them to leave the industry immediately because you're making us all look bad. Go do something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Good point. And that's exactly spot on. And I think that is a huge factor. It's that trust element that it has to be earned and it has to be given, and so it is a
That's
two-way
slow.
street. Right.
Trust is slow. And I know from a lot of my folks come in there and they're upset that their executives don't trust them in week number two. I'm like, think about even your best friend, how long it took you to build that relationship where you're comfortable enough to even give your best friend, your something like your social security number and your bank account number. So it takes a while. And when both people have to be patient and on purpose build the trust.
Yeah. So we touched on the AI game. You mentioned that's a kind of a new initiative in your world. Tell us more about that.
Sure. Look, it's here. It's not going anywhere. We have, the world has a new toy and we don't give up our new toys. So AI is here. I know a lot of folks in my profession are scared that it will take over our job, which I hope everyone out there hears me when I say it's never going to take over our jobs. We are human beings, and there is not a robot that will take over for the care and uh, like critical thinking that a human does. So it will not take over our job, but I do think it's an opportunity for my administrative folks out there to rule the next decade. If anyone can take this tool and run with it and help them with their own experiences, help them do things faster, smarter, more correct with better spelling, we can rule the next decade if we're really the ones who take it upon ourselves to do it. So, from my perspective, don't fear it, jump in. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter your age, just try. This is why I have the course coming out on Friday, because I just want folks to get in there, understand it's not scary, understand it can help you do your own things faster, smarter, but the human element will never be removed.
Right. Well, I've had a number of so-called gurus and well-respected officials in the AI community on my show here, and without exception, one of the things they will end up talking about is the what I think the popular phrase is human in the loop. You can
Yep.
set up a workflow or a bot, but some human better be checking the output before it's released for consumption. because it's still at this day, there are inaccuracies in the content that pop up. There's, oh, I just drew a blank. There's a phrase about hallucination. There's AI
Hallucination.
hallucination that still happens in many of the models.
Yeah,
So that human review has to happen because it could have taken off and gone a whole different detour on a topic. But the other thing I think that there's an opportunity to draw a kind of a bright line here is that AI doesn't have to be about building bots to do tasks. While it does that, and the right people can develop those and help contribute to productivity in a business. From a leader and an assistant standpoint, it's just an exceptional conversation partner.
absolutely.
It's that idea of I've got a thought, I've got an issue. Here are three or four things I'm thinking about it. What else am I missing? What else have I forgotten? And I have found immense value in running those kind of conversations through AI brains. And I've dabbled with all the big names, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and now Perplexity is my newest favorite friend.
Mhm.
Um, but it's kind of like having a big family and being asked, which kid do you love the best?
Which kid do you love the best? Yeah,
I don't. I have found the nuances in each one of them, and at least for my purposes, and
absolutely.
I've begun picking and choosing when I deploy which platform, depending on what I'm trying to achieve. So there's an element of that has to happen as well. What are you seeing if you're starting to have this discussion with current assistants or aspiring assistants? What's the general attitude about coming in and entertaining that idea?
Mixed bag as everyone is. There's a lot of us that are seeing this as a very, very powerful tool for our future. And if we can be the ones to learn everything about it upside down and backwards, we can again revolutionize the next decade and bring our profession up to where it needs to be. And then there are those that are just hate like the seething coming out of their mouths when they talk to me about AI. And I think it's a real shame that it's being really put in a box by some people and is just being labeled as evil, where I think it
Yeah,
has so many really interesting applications. And in my profession, again, not only for doing things like creating meeting agendas and summaries of notes, and there's so many practical technical applications. One of the things that I'm so excited about, for ChatGPT specifically, is, another thing we've never been trained on is how to have crucial conversations, how to give feedback, how to have hard conversations, I never took the class, how to tell someone that their breath stinks. Like, this would be a class that would be great for us to have in school. So now those that are very conflict avoidant, maybe very scared to bring things up, maybe scared to talk to a colleague about something, can now work with ChatGPT and say, let's have a role play. How would I say this to my colleague? How can I tell my executive XYZ? And to me, that's the one of the happiest applications that I could possibly have in that. I think that will change our world if we learn how to have crucial conversations better.
right, right. And on that point, if I may, I'll add, and I've done the same thing in my own world. There's even an opportunity to feed to AI your perception of how this other person views the world. And, you might say something like, I already know this person is hypersensitive, can't take criticism real well, tremendously high self-critic in their brain, and so I want to be kind and gentle, but I want to be firm and fair. How would I word that? How would I say that? And AI can help you with that.
It
And
can help you with
whether
that.
you call it neuro-linguistic programming or whatever, it can give you the words that are least likely to trigger a negative effect. And It's just amazing in in that way. So yeah,
And vice versa on the interpretation of messages. I know a lot of people will get an email from someone and say, "Oh, how dare they send me this email?" And they were barking at me, or they have some offense to a written piece of communication. Or now they can stick it into ChatGPT and say, "Give me four options of how what this person meant by this specific conversation that, or written word that they sent me." And then it'll pop back out. If nothing else, it just helps you understand that there are options and maybe being snarky was not the reason that they sent that email.
right, right. That's great. Good stuff. Well, let's let's get back to the main topic at hand. What is your best advice to someone who is trying to perfect their gifts and talents as an assistant to an executive? What are a couple of things you would tell them to really focus on and think about?
I am all about working towards your strengths. I think self-awareness is something that we lack as a society these days in general. And I think if my administrative colleagues could really understand what gifts they have, understand their skills, their talents. I use a lot of personality assessments and Clifton Strengths and disc analysis. And I love things like that because it'll pop me back words that I've never used about myself, just ways of understanding what gifts I have. And then once you find out what tools you have in your toolbox, lean in. Go towards those. Don't worry about the things that you're weak at. You're weak at them. Like acknowledge that they're there, wave at them when they get in your way, and move on and concentrate on your strengths and own them and be confident with them. We have a serious lack of confidence in this industry. And I think the more we can stand up and go, nope, I want to do that. I'm going to see that event that you want to plan. I've got that. I can do it. And here's why. That's what I want to see more of, the volunteering and working towards your strength set.
I love it.
And
It-
owning your OCD. There's a lot of us who are like, oh, I'm so organized. Yeah, do it. Own it. Grab your label maker, get into it, enjoy yourself.
I love that. Yeah, I don't want to go too far down the road here, but again, I had a chapter and I hired a person to be my assistant on a project, and sure enough, severe OCD emerged, and
Mm,
it for a time it almost became a derailer,
yeah,
but we were able to kind of corral it and
yeah,
channel it, and it's almost like the wild stallion, out of the West.
absolutely,
You don't really
absolutely.
break their spirit. That's not what you do, but you want to get them under control so that the strength they do have can be optimized. So
And we have to understand that just because we're like that doesn't mean everyone else is like that. We have to understand that our gifts are our gifts, your gifts are your gifts. So again, advice to the administrators out there, don't make your executive try to like don't take your OCD out on them. Take your OCD out on yourself, on your own stuff, on your own desk, on your own whatever. But we can't make other people follow certain rules if that's not what they're good at. We have to figure out the environment in which all of us will succeed.
I love it. Those are great words to close on. So, Monique, tell folks the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about your work.
Sure, my name is Monique Hellstrom, and you can pretty much find me everywhere under that name. My website is Monique Hellstrom. Most of my social media is Monique Hellstrom. And right on my website, you can schedule a discovery call with me, a half an hour call, just to see what the possibilities are for the future.
I love it. Well, as always, folks, we're going to have those links in the show notes. And do think about it if you're struggling in your own world as a leader or business owner, maybe identifying a good, capable right hand, as Monique has described here, is your next step that really should be considered. But I think for now, we're going to wrap this thing up. I do like to remind everybody we've got a video version of this show over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there, check out our archive, give us some feedback, subscribe to the channel if you will. That's what helps keep these things coming. But for now, we're going to sign off, say goodbye. Go out there, make it a great day.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.